My name is Randy Boyd. I'm a survivor and a courageous healing man of childhood sexual, physical, emotional, and spiritual abuse. My abuse started at the age of 12. That is, the sexual abuse started at the age of 12. The actual physical and emotional abuse started way before then. But my story starts when I was 10 years old, and my brother, my mother, and I went on a trip to Indiana. What I thought was a family vacation, less my father because he was working. And when I got home, I wanted to see my father really bad. I'd been emotionally abused in certain senses in Indiana on the trip, and I just wanted to see my father. I wanted him to hold me and tell me how much he loved me. And I remember walking in the house and looking for my father. He wasn't there. I thought he was at work. And when I asked my mother where he was at, she said he wasn't coming home. I go, well, but when? He's never coming home. And so at a very young age, I was taught that it's okay to lie and deceive and to hold secrets, because essentially that's what they did to me and my brother at that point in time. My mother was very much, very alcoholic, very promiscuous. She cared more about her promiscuity and her alcoholism than she did about me and my brother. We would go out, she would go out at night with bars and take us with her, and we'd be in the back of the car. And I can remember going back into the bars late at night to get her, you know, how scared I was. And she'd come out to the car and eventually take us home. I want to back up. My father was still very much a part of mine and my brother's life between the time of the divorce and 1969. And in the interim, my mother started dating this other gentleman who had earned our trust, had become part of the family. When my father wasn't there, he was there. He was taking us places, doing things with us, and we had a lot of fun. The next secret that came up, or the next lie that came up, is that my father, about 1968, we were told he became ill, and we were told he had a contagious disease, yellow jaundice, and that we couldn't see him as much as we were going to see him. And when we did see him, I had to sit on the front porch. If you can imagine yourself, if you're a 12-year-old boy and you want to hold your father, you want your father to hold you, and I'm sitting on the front porch with a screen door between me and him, and I can't go to him. What I know today is he was sick, and he just didn't want us to see him as sick as he was. That's all it really amounted to. But again, Jack had earned our trust, and in 1969 we got a dreadful call on a night that my father had passed away of cancer. Again, we weren't told that he was dying of cancer, we were just told he was sick. Within a month of my father passing away, I'm a 12-year-old boy. I need a father's love and I need a father's figure in my life. And within a month, that man that had earned my trust began sexually abusing me. And not only was it, I thought it was love, and I'll tell you it has nothing to do with love, it has all to do with power, but not only was it, I thought I had a father's figure and a father's love, he told me it was our little secret, so I thought I was a member of a special club. So the sexual abuse started real slow with some slow fondling. Over the period of a couple of years that progressed, I was exposed to sexual actions between my mother and my stepfather. Even before they got married or even met, I remember coming home waking up one night in the middle of the night, hearing my mother screaming, and it scared me. And I went out in the living room, and she was on the floor having sex with a strange man that I didn't know, and I was just told to go back in my bed. And at the time, I was probably 10 or 11, so there's a lot of confusion going on in my head about what was happening to her at that point in time. When my mother and married Jack, we took off to go to Texas because he had a pipe dream. He was extremely alcoholic, and he had some big pipe dream back in Texas he thought was going to happen. But the whole way there, we were in hotel rooms. And again, we were exposed to a lot of sex. My mother and my stepfather had no problem having sex in the hotel room while my brother and I were sleeping in the next bed. My mother had no problem masturbating my father as we were driving across the country. There's a natural progression that's supposed to take place for young teens and adolescents to learn about the sex drive and all that, and I was pretty much robbed of it all. The first part of emotional abuse was he wanted me to get a neighbor kid over in my bedroom and perform. I don't know what he wanted me to do, to be honest with you. I'm assuming it was sexual acts, and he was going to hide in the closet. And I did everything he wanted me to do, and he was hiding in the closet. And I remember I got to a point I didn't know what to do, so I turned to the closet to ask Jack what he wanted. And he turned bright red, his veins popped out of his neck. And I remember how ashamed I felt. And that was my first experience with emotional abuse, because I was doing everything he wanted me to, but yet he was really mad at me. And what I know today, he was mad at me because I exposed him for what he was doing. So we ended up settling in Dana Point, California, and I grew up in Dana Point, California. And they were extremely alcoholic. And slowly the physical abuse and the emotional abuse got worse. And a lot of the emotional abuse was just, you know, things like if I was crying or I was hurt, you know, quit crying, you little baby, get over it, grow up, you're a man. All the things we're told as men that, you know, we're not supposed to feel. And one of the things I talk about a lot is we as men are told our feelings are shut down. And some of the physical, the little physical abuse was things like pinching the back of my arm right here. And it was excruciating pain. My stepbrothers, my stepfather would do it. And I would cry, and it would hurt. And he'd tell me not to cry, grow up, be a man about it. And the more I cried, the more they pinched me, and the more it hurt. So, you know, I was told that what I was feeling wasn't real at an early age, and the pain in my heart wasn't real. So I was being physically abused as well as being emotionally abused at the same time. But one of the worst beatings came again when I was 17 years old, and my mother and I were having a conversation, and my end of it was, Mom, you guys are always right and we're always wrong. And as usual, I was put on restriction for voicing my opinion. And the next day I decided that I was coming home, the surf came in, I grabbed my surfboard, was gonna go surfing, and she said, no, you're not, you're on restriction. I go, no, I'm not on restriction, I'm going surfing. My stepfather was out of town at the time. She had to call the police. She didn't have to, she chose to call the police. They came back once I got home, lectured me for about an hour and went away. The next night when my stepfather got home at 10 o'clock at night, I had long hair at that point in my life. He came in at 10 o'clock, I was sound asleep, pulled me out of bed by the hair on my head, and started beating the living daylights out of me. When I asked my brother about it about 20 some years ago, he says, Randy, if I wasn't there, he'd have killed you. And the whole time, my mother was at the end of the bed instigating this. I'm fortunate that I do have my wife with me still, that loves me very much. I'm fortunate that I have my kids with me that love me very much. You know, and I've learned how to deal with the effects of all that child abuse. I'm not saying it doesn't affect me still, because it does, affects me a lot in a lot of different ways. But I'm given the tools today to work through it when certain things come up. You know, I can be there for my kids today. I can be the father that I never had to my kids today. So that's one of the blessings that I've received, partly of my recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous, and also the healing journey that I'm on today. I turned to the alcohol and drugs to get rid of the shame, the pain, and the fear that I was feeling on a daily basis. And what I want to say for those out there that are listening to this, it doesn't work. It doesn't help, because that shame and pain doesn't go anywhere. It stays within you. And 38 years later, when I was dealing with that, my fourth step in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, that shame came back up in ways that I had no idea was still in me. But when it came up, I knew if I took another drink or a drug, it would push that shame right back in where it came from. But I also knew if I did that, I would never heal. And so what I will tell a lot of guys I work with, you have to feel the shame again. You have to feel the pain, and you have to feel the fear, unfortunately. But that's the only way that I was able to heal from it. That's the only way that the men that I work with are able to heal with it. It's not going to hurt me like it did before. And it's definitely a lot better than it was when I did that fourth step almost 6 years ago now. As I got older, the one thing about people that have been abused is we don't have a voice. So for me, it was that secret. I didn't want to tell nobody. For others, they might be threatened with physical harm, so they don't want to reach out. I can remember talking to somebody or trying to talk to somebody about Jack's physical abuse, and I was shut down. I was told, no, that's not Jack, you got the wrong person. I can remember one time when he was tearing apart the house in a physical rage, running up and down the street trying to get neighbors to help him call the police, and the doors just shut on me. So it's not that I didn't want to turn to somebody for help. My voice wasn't heard. Nobody wanted to listen to me. And when I did say, and somebody listened to me, like I say about the physical abuse, I was told, no, you're crazy, you're wrong. That's not Jack. Jack's not that kind of guy. You're just a rebellious kid. You just got to be aware. Pay attention. 90% of all perpetrators are acquaintances of the family. They're not strangers. Only 7% of all perpetrators are strangers to the kids. So it's just be aware. Just be aware and be involved in your kids' lives. One thing, I've started a foundation called Courageous Healers Foundation. And that foundation is for sexually abused boys and men to come and start their healing path. And we focus only on boys and men because that's where a lot of attention needs to be focused, as well as their families. Perpetrators will have to find another spot to do it. The big project I got coming up, and God willing, April 2013, I'll be riding my bicycle from Palm Springs, California to Washington, D.C. with stops all along the way. And I'm doing that to raise awareness of sexual abuse in boys and men. We've got to quit sweeping underneath the rug. I'm passionate about this, and I want it brought to the surface, and I don't want it swept to the rug anymore. But as much as bringing the awareness of the sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and that it's not okay and it's not part of growing up, is a healing process as well that I want to get out to the people, that you can heal from this. You're not alone. For God's sake, you're not alone. 1 in 6 boys before the age of 18 will have been sexually abused, and only 10% of all cases are reported, so that number's not right. In the valley I live, along Coachella Valley, that's 46,000 boys and men have been sexually abused. That's a small county or city right there. So it's just get involved. When we have a conference coming up, it happens to boys. Educate yourself on this. Be aware and just get involved and quit sweeping underneath the rug. The perpetrators are the perpetrators. They're sick people. They need help also. But we got to quit putting them in the spotlight and putting the victims in. We have to start putting the victims in the spotlight and let them get help, because it's not all right what's happening out there. We're not supposed to come home and worry about what's going to happen tonight when I get home. What kind of monster is going to emerge when my stepfather walks through the door, or my alcoholic mother. What's going to happen tonight to me? We're not supposed to grow up that way. We're supposed to be loved. And we're supposed to have a voice. We're supposed to be able to be a kid, go outside and play, and enjoy life.